Sure. Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So let's get started. And again, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this in this afternoon in US. And myself, Levan. I am technical lead at Accelerate, and I'll be the presenter for today's session. And today's session is going to be very interesting because we're going to start with the basics. We're going to start with what is agentic AI, and this very first session will be giving you a lot of insights. So again, this session is, the part one of this entire series that we are doing with the New York chapter. So as Diana mentioned, please feel to register to all the session. It is going to be very much interesting because we are going to look up into different tools, into different use cases in where we can apply these tools within your ecosystem. So it is going to be a lot of learning. So just make sure you sign up to this session after the end of this meet. So the following will be the agenda for today's meeting. We're gonna start right from knowing what is the journey towards agentic look like, and we're gonna start with exploring what is the key concept behind agents. What is the different understanding between agentic AI and Gen AI and all the around those concepts. And we're going to also look at the core characteristics that governs the agentic AI, and we're going to look what it means to implement this agentic AI within your enterprise workflow. And finally, we'll be having some Q&A session. So getting started. So if you guys are, kind of following the internet right now, or you're seeing the head news, you will be definitely seeing there has been a lot of buzz around, different AI technologies, right? So the way the AI actually been expanded, like in the last 5 years, it has been, so much, right? It's compared to the all the decade that we have seen, how the technology has been growing, and compare it with just the last 3 or 4 years, it has been exponential, right? So it was, again, it was so much interesting for me because just I was present when preparing these slides. I got to know about one of the AI tool called Napkin AI that helps you, create the visuals in the presentation. So the point here is, the growth around the different AI tools and the how different vendors are coming up with their own version of AI tools for solving certain use cases. It has been tremendous. And if you look at the UiPath journey, UiPath added this core component of AI right from its beginning. So if you look up, when RPA was like a buzzword around like, in the 2015s to 2020s, we can, where RPA was majorly used for doing the UI automation, for getting the elements on the screen. Um, you might be known about this product called computer vision within the UiPath Studio that will help you to, do UI automation in the places where, the selectors or you're not able to find the target element. So I mean, the AI component was like in the product right from the beginning, and over the years we can see of how UiPath evolved with its suite of offering, where it was not able to provide just the basic around the automation, but it was also able to extend its capability for a low code application, and not forgetting about the discovery tools. There has been a great impact on how process mining and task mining is changing the way where we are defining our processes. And one of the, like a key product around the UiPath, in the past years has obviously been document understanding. And if you look up into the researcher, into like Gartner or Everest, you can find that UiPath document understanding was leading the show, right? The way they actually brought up, the document understanding and the way the approach that they used for solving the document, it has actually been kind of very much exceptional. And you can also see like how AI has been shaping the test automation industry, right? And right now we can see how AI capabilities has been introduced within the test automation space using UiPath Test Suite, and all this has been kind of geared towards, and it's kind of heading towards the AI, completely AI based automation. So starting on with the Gen AI, where in 2023 UiPath introduced uh, direct integrations with different AI providers, namely OpenAI and Google and Meta. You can infuse this LLM based activities within your workflow. And right now it has been extended where it is not only used within the automation workflow, but you can use it as part of, your direct day-to-day life. Maybe it is your, where you're testing certain application or you're building certain application. No, everything has actually been kind of solved right now using the autopilot. And finally, the end goal, where the future is kind of heading is the agentic. And that's the, the major component that we'll be seeing in part of today's session. So I think majority of people in this call might already know about what is RPA. So RPA, it is still, one of the impacting technologies that we have. You might have seen, certain posts that, hey, agentic is going to completely replace RPA, or RPA is kind of no more like, but all that is kind of, I feel that, it is kind of very much false on how it is, how technology is heading, right? So RPA is still going to be there. It is still going to evolve, like the way it interacts with different systems, the way it can kind of automate different tasks. The rule-based, the automation, it is still going to remain. But the major impact that we can see in future is, how automation is able to solve not only the rule-based, part of your day-to-day, but is also able to automate the thinking part of it, where there is certain level of decision involved, where there is certain level of complexity and kind of a non-deterministic monistic factor involved. So that's why the agent will be kind of playing a very big role. So one of the big example that you can take up is, let's say you're kind of doing an end-to-end automation, right? And part of it involves a kind of human decision making where, certain task has to be delegated to human. And that is kind of becomes a challenging part overall to maintain it and kind of govern it. So that is where agentic AI will kind of shine, and will be giving a tremendous impact. So one thing, before we even get started, exploring what is agentic AI and the different components and different characteristics around it, it's very much important that we, know the basics right. We know what we get to know about what is different technologies and what is this keyword is all about. So I want to start with, kind of going into each one of these. And again, this all these three, it kind of it's not like a separate technologies in itself. There is some kind of overlap. There is some kind of gray area, around these technologies. So Gen AI, it is generative AI. It is a branch, or it is a practice within the AI space where you can actually solve certain problem by sending your request to a AI system. So this AI system has been trained on a humongous amount of data so that it can understand what you're requesting for and it can give you a smart enough response, right? Um, so this model, it excels in understanding, what is your ground level information, what is something that you're looking out for. It can be as simple as, hey, this is, my problem, and write me a kind of email to solve this, right? It can be as simple as that, or it can be even further that, hey, this is my requirement. Can you write me a Python code for it? Or it can be even, further that, hey, this is my requirement. This is my user story. Can you write me test data for this? Can you write me a test cases for this? So in all this context, in all these domains, the LLM model behind the scene, that is the brain of the entire system, it is able to understand what you're looking out for, and it is able to produce your content, right? Now the content, just as I said, it can be as simple as a simple text, or it can be furthermore like a code, or it can be a workflow, etc. So the primary goal of this Gen AI is just to create your content response for your particular problem. Then we have furthermore as AI agent, right? Now there is a different definitions where you can see, what these technologies online. I got this entire definition from Forrester. It's one of the reliable research group. So Forrester says that AI agent is something that it's a software system that excels in solving a specific goal, right? And what this specific goal is kind of overlaid in a kind of a boundary, and it has a predefined rules in it, right? and the level of autonomy, the level of AI agent able to do its task by itself is comparatively low, and compare as compared to agentic AI, right? Now, what these things mean? One of the good example to understand AI agent is Microsoft Copilot, right? So again, I'm not sure if people in this meeting has heard about Microsoft Copilot. So Copilot is again a smart and productivity assistant that Microsoft introduced, where you can go to Copilot and it can it's same like a Chat GPT, right? But Copilot integrates well with the Microsoft products. So if you want to do an automation where, hey, on a daily basis, where if you want to generate certain documentation, or if you have a use case with you know what information you want to put in into presentation, and you give that information to Copilot, it can generate a presentation PowerPoint for you. So the overall the purpose of a Copilot, it just integrates well with the Microsoft product, and it can help you more like a smart productivity assistant, while when you're dealing with documentation, or maybe it is one of the good tool that you can use it for summarizing your meeting content. And again, here the task that the Copilot performs, it is very much into the boundary of Microsoft, or uh, like on a task or a granular level. So here in an AI agent, the one of the key differential factor is the autonomy is comparatively less, as compared to an agentic AI. Now, agentic AI is a paradigm where you're building a kind of an smart assistant that can not only think, but can also act upon it, right? And it can act upon it on a very much broader level than just your AI agent. It can not only understand your request and create documentation, but it can even perform certain tasks such as sending out an email, or putting out certain information out in a different system, right? So the level of autonomy, meaning the system able to perform action on itself, is comparatively very much higher than the AI agent. So there are different parts to the agentic AI in order to fully understand it. uh, there are different core concepts that you must understand in order to fully know what is agentic AI. So kind of a very high level difference between around these technologies, and again, I will not going into this presentation into this difference between. I'll put this slide into this meeting invite. If you can directly go to this link of this session, you'll be able to find the presentation, and you can be able to find this guide as well. But really touching upon what are the core characteristics around the agentic AI, and we'll be spending kind of most of our time on understanding this core characteristics and what it means when it comes to an enterprise, when you're solving a kind of real use case, what how you can kind of tie this up to your enterprise workflow, right? So this is the top 5 characteristics that governs the entire agentic AI. So at the very high level, the purpose of bringing an agentic AI is to, solve certain automations where, that really requires a human thinking, where you have to extend your thought process to a system, and where which you can trust in making a certain decision, right? Let's say you have an invoice out with you, right? Now, so far you are building automation just to scrape the details from the invoice and putting it into a third-party tool. Now, there are more than just putting the information out, right? Because when it comes to a business workflow, someone has to take that information and act upon it. They have to, for example, there is some dispute within the invoices, so someone has to go ahead and do the research and figure out, okay, where is that the balance amount, if the balance amount from the previous month is kind of matching with what you have currently, right? So there are so many kind of things that goes behind the scene which you cannot directly simply apply a rule for. So that is where the agentic all this concept actually comes in play, and it kind of glues together to kind of solve a particular approach. So the very first, and the most important part of the agentic AI is the autonomy, right? Now, autonomy is part where the system is able to act upon its own, right? Where it has all the bells and whistles, and it is able to think through, and it is able to completely take care and control the situation, right? And there is a very minimal part of a human intervention that is required. Otherwise, the system is fully able to take care of the request, right? Now there are different ways that you can actually go about this one. One simple example that you can easily understand is the self-driving car, right? So with the self-driving car, all that you have to put down is your location, right? Then the system, within the car itself, it takes care about everything. It takes care about what are the turns you have to make, where you have to do more acceleration, where you have to apply brakes. It knows different things around you, and it is able to reach you, help you reaching the final destination, and without having much human intervention required in that part. The second important part is adaptability, and you can, rightfully see from the icon right there, chameleon. A chameleon is able to very much adapt to its, given surrounding. It is able to change its color. It will be able to get camouflaged, in its background. So the same thing when it comes to AI system, it has to understand different scenarios. It has to understand basically your enterprise world, where it is not just simple, just few scenarios and be done with it. There are multiple scenarios that comes up with your business processes, right? So this system that you're building, it should be capable enough to understand the different environment, and it should be able to learn and also adapt to the changing environment, right? One of the example that you can think of is, you're building a smart document assistant, right? Where it is able to grab not only certain document which it was trained on, but also taking care of all the the different variations or different things that can come up in future. But so the model kind of gets get over and better in time. It's able to understand what are the different new scenarios or new rules that comes up. Then the third, and again, this is one of the most important part of the agentic AI, as part of reasoning, as just thinking through, what are the different possibilities, of reaching a particular outcome. Now, when you're solving a particular business case, there will be different, approaches where you can lead up or end up to a particular outcome, right? And as a human, you'll be thinking along all these approaches, and you'll be taking up one final decision. So the same thing, actually goes quite a bit about the agents, that you're kind of building with, where you're able to give like a thought process to the system, where it is able to, get like different options, and it will be able to choose, go with the one that is, making a lot much relevant sense, right? So in this, the agent is able to understand, okay, what is your given context, and it is able to come up with the best case solution, and it's able to implement that solution, right? And obviously, when it comes to enterprise, you'll be having certain level of guardrails. You'll be, detecting, like what is the kind of information that, or the step that this agent should be processing, and all this is kind of controlled in a way that that is not causing that it is kind of following the enterprise workflow, and it is not deviating much from it. Then one of the another important concept that comes is the goal oriented behavior. So in this, the model or the system, it is actually focusing on the end result, right? Uh, so same understanding, same analogy that you can take from a self-driving car, right? You have a complete autonomous car. The goal of that, the car is to reach, it is to help you reach to your destination. So maybe there are different things that comes along the way. Maybe there, it has to, slow down when, when someone is applying brake in front, or maybe there is a signal out there, you have to slow down. There is all the thing that comes along the path, but the entire part of that activity, or, for the self-driving car, is to help you reach to that final destination. Then comes, and this is, one of the first layer that comes in picture, that is a perception and interaction. It is an ability for your system to understand your, the actual world, the actual use case. It is the capability where it can interact, with different system. It can understand, okay, on which context it is working with, and it is able to pass this information to a reasoning layer, right? Uh, and you can think of about this one as, let's say, the invoice processing use case. So you need to have a certain system that can, look up into these documents. It can understand, okay, and it can extract the entities from the document, right? So that this data that is extracted can be passed on to some, layer or some, model that can think, and an automation that can, work, can take this data and can do some automation on top of it. Um, So all this, actually makes a great deal, but what it actually comes to an enterprise, right? Uh, can we build agent, using all the constraints that we have with an enterprise, right? And can we apply all the concepts that we learned so far, and so, the characteristics that we learned so far into an enterprise workflow? The answer is yes, and we'll be saying, what are the different constraints that we have, and how UiPath, it's kind of a stand it's kind of setting its game, to a front where it is able to solve, all this kind of concepts and challenges that comes with an enterprise with agentic AI. So first and foremost, if you want to implement a completely agentic AI in an AI system that is interacting with, the different data that you have, different tools that you have, the first and foremost step that you'll be thinking along, hey, is my data secure? um, if I'm giving exposure to all these tools, and which is very much client centric, which has so many risks, is it safe, right? And is the data that is being exposed from my system is being used by the platform or not, right? So you'll be thinking more along the governance and the trust factor, right? So UiPath, in this case, they have a component where they have built this entire solution called AI trust layer. So the AI trust layer is kind of a foundational of, how things and how data moves with, your system, and also with the UiPath system, right? So it has been well defined with, all the policies, and it has been governed by, all the factors, so that at the end, you know the agents that you're building, it is completely trusted enough, and the data that you are dealing with, it's stored in a secured framework. So the next important thing that comes here is, uh, you want to you want to use a, certain product that can understand the real world scenario, right? For example, if you just expose your data to a chat GPT, right? You go to a chat GPT and you tell, hey, this is my problem. So it will be thinking more along the data on the, it will be more starting on with a generic world, right, where it has been exposed to so many open source things, so it will be not able to think through on your enterprise level, on the policies that you're defined with, on basically the model that you're working with, right? So you may need to have a certain product that can work very well with the within your data, right? Because at the end, the agent has to come up with certain outcome, right? And the outcome, it will be, making more sense if it is, if that particular model is been, heavily trained on your enterprise data, right? So that's where, a product like UiPath, it makes total sense. For example, I cannot use an AI agent that is built in an healthcare environment and directly use it within a finance environment, right? I mean, it doesn't make more sense, because the agent will be not able to come up and make a better outcome, right? Because at the end, all the, agent will act upon is basically on the data that it has been working with for a while. So you may need to have a product that understands your particular niche of, your business, and you'll be able to make some outcome on it. Then the other factor that comes in is the tool integration. So in one of the interview, Daniel Dinas, the CEO of UiPath, rightfully stated that UiPath is like the Switzerland of the connectivity, the Switzerland of the product, where UiPath can connect with any enterprise system out there, right? Maybe it is, like ERP, or it can be of CRM, or maybe like you don't have an API for your traditional, application. Uh, Through the RPA layer, you can actually connect with these kind of application as well. So basically, you kind of want to build up a suite of product that can integrate and talk to different systems within your application, right? And UiPath has already been doing it, and they have been kind of a leading player in doing that. Then comes uh, the vendor agnostic, where uh, the platform or the provider will give you an option where you can choose, a particular LLM model of your choice, right? Because all at the end, the agents will actually go through and it will query a LLM, a foundational LLM model, so that it can process certain information out of it, right? So you may need to have certain option depending on your enterprise. If you're more like a Microsoft shop, you maybe tend to go with more like an open AI for your LLM, right? But if you're using something else, you'll be looking out to that specific provider. So you may need to have the platform an option to choose along the different AI models that you have. And UiPath gives you an option, and again, all this is kind of managed to the trust layer. And finally, once you build all these agents, you build all your automations, you need to kind of have an orchestration layer that can tie up all these things together, right? Uh, because it's not only about having a particular system and you're able to get an outcome from that. At the end, you want a system where you can actually, have different agents communicate to each other. You can actually see the audit trails of how these agents are doing, and more importantly, you want to kind of measure of how these agents are doing for a in a while. So that's, I mean, here is where the orchestration plays a very important part, where it can tie all these things together, right? And also, if an agent is not able to understand, or it's not able to completely govern certain aspect, at that point you want to have a human who can lead it, who can tell it, okay, for this scenario, this is how you should react, and going forward, it should be able to learn from that behavior, right? So all these different components that we just saw, it actually quite fit very well with UiPath, and with UiPath Agentic AI tool, and how they have been kind of solving all this industry level challenges. So moving on, so just touching upon this the idea and the concept that we just went through of how UiPath's product strategy is kind of been very much glued into what we just saw about. They have the world-class cloud, right? It has been trusted by more than from the majority of the Fortune 500 companies, and most of them are actually in the cloud right now, with having the data and with your day-to-day orchestration and the robots being governed from the UiPath cloud. And they are the best in citizens for the automation. So you can just name it your traditional and still the RPA and the API automation. And all these kind of classes of automation, UiPath has been a leader, and it has been a key differential, player so far. And more importantly, a trust factor that is, that has been absolutely been standard out by UiPath, where you can build an enterprise agent, basically because you have a already been a matured product that is acting upon a trust layer. So we actually went into all this concept. We just went through what is agentic AI, and what are the different components, and what are the different characteristics that actually make an agentic AI within an enterprise. So now, how we actually solve it, how UiPath you know will get this done practically, right? Because in theory it all makes more sense, and it makes us a lot much excited as well. Uh, can we get into an AI agent that will be completely doing my day to day, right? And I don't have to sit in my screen like for 8 hours a day, or like 12 hours a day, more than that. Why not I can have an agent dedicated to do my all my work, right? And is that really possible? Is that full autonomy really possible, right? And for that, think UiPath has built up a kind of a solid framework through which I think we it will be able to kind of crack the nuts out of it. So uh, on the right hand side of this diagram, you can see this layer of the automation layer, and this is something which we have currently, and which is this is where we have built our automation so far. Now, where we know our business process well, where we are building around certain rules around the business process, and we are building around the automation, the RPA workflows through which it was able to automate certain tasks within the business automation. Then we brought the specialized AI and also the Gen AI just to help in certain parts within the workflows. For instance, if there was a need for classifying certain data along the lines, we were infusing that with the AI, and we were using the human in the loop step more like a sequential, or more like a as part of this entire hierarchy, as a must to have step when we are dealing with Gen AI, because these models, it tend to hallucinate a lot, and without having proper instruction, it becomes very much easier that there is a lot of human step involved. And also we had this integration layer where instead of directly talking to these different applications through UI automation, we were building API based automation, where we can directly use the endpoints to move the data or to do some automation as part of the workflow. But agentic AI just demands more than that. You'll be not simply building your rule-based automation and you'll be tying up different pieces together, right? You want to have an agent that can understand your business process, right? It wants to know, okay, depending on certain scenarios, what are the next steps it has to do, right? So that's where the first and the fundamental thing that comes up is the prompts, right? So prompts is basically a way to tell your agent what it has to do. You're basically giving an instruction to your agent in how they have to do certain steps. You can think like a 10-year-old kid, and if you want to the 10-year-old kid for doing certain activities, you have to be very much specific enough and telling and guiding that the kid to do to make the right thing. So in case of agent, you have to be very much specific and kind of smart enough to give all the instructions that is needed and that you want that agent to do. That an instruction without giving the data, it is kind of meaningless, right? So the agent, how it is built is you need to give context, right? You need to give the data on which it has to interact with, right? So there is again a technology here that comes here, context grounding, where your instructions and the data it has to be working with, it has to be kind of governed, and it has to kind of work together on the data so that it will make more sense, right? And finally, this agents will have exposure to all these UiPath tools, right? uh, so it will be getting access to all these tools by the integration layer, and also by different automations that you have been building over the time, right? So this is where the RPA layer and also the integration layer with different tools will tie up. So not necessarily you can solve everything directly through the integration, right? You may have certain automation that takes certain inputs, and based on the action it will be able to do certain things out, right? For example, you'll be building DU automation that will be able to take that information from a document, and it will be able to get that information from the document out, right? Now these inputs and from a particular automation can be mapped together to a different automation, right? So that's where your instructions and this tool set will actually help you. And finally, we need a human agent to lead this entire agentic behavior, right? So unless we had a human in this loop step before, where there was like majority of the cases that been into the human in the loop step. Right now, we'll have a very marginal less, and again, as every step the human will take, the agent will be smart enough to record it in its memory, and if the given scenario that comes again, that it will be able to handle by its own. And at the end, you'll be having this entire layer built around the foundation with the UiPath trust layer, And again, you'll be having an orchestration layer that will be kind of, putting all these things together. So I just want to take a like a few minutes and just go over if anyone has any questions.
So
And
you
you can
have
also
quite
put,
a few questions in the chat. Do you want me to go through them?
sure.
The first one is, do we need technical knowledge to move into an AI agentic role?
So the answer is yes. You basically need to know, the different tools that you have in enterprise, and also you need to know basically of how you can, put them together, right? Uh, UiPath Agent Builder is kind of a low-code platform, but still you need to know the basics around how, that we went through, right? How this agent operates. One of the things is, you need to be well enough with the prompt engineering, because basically you are giving now the instructions to the robot instead of building the code. Right now you want to, be smart enough to provide certain, prompts, and, in a way that it can be very clear for an agent to do its day-to-day work.
Are there any prerequisites that you need?
Um, so the prerequisite, I will just say that, it will be very good that you have an automation background. Maybe like you have a basic knowledge about, what is RPA is, and also like different terminologies in AI, and what it means, right? For example, right now with context surrounding, right? Since all this will kind of work together and it will be able to get you an, outcome. So you need to know what are the different components that actually builds up this outcome, right? So I mean, I think the best thing that we can do is you can start ahead with, exploring what is RPA, and start understanding what is the different, component within this AI technology means. And also there is a course in UiPath that actually guides around how to get started on the fundamentals of agentic AI. That will be a very good place where you can start with.
And then Vina Levon, I just put the URL for the new course that just came out on Agentic as well in the chat for anybody who's interested. And then the next question for you is, how can Agentic work for healthcare and data management platforms?
Okay. So the first and foremost, it's very important to know what is the enterprise use case, and I think the agentic world will be mostly to work in collaboration with the business user. It's not as simple as straightforward, like, as a RPA developer, you would just come in and what is the end-to-end automation you're looking out for, and you're building an RPA bot for doing it. For this agentic, you need to know what is your business processes, right? You need to know what are the different scenarios that you can expect, just as a human, if you're working on a specific operation, you need to know, okay, what are the different scenarios that it can come up with, right? So I think, with healthcare or with any kind of tech or, domain, it is more about a collaboration that you need to have with the business, and also a very good foundation and knowledge about, how this process works. And finally, you'll be putting an agent like that will be uh, kind of a smart glue that can kind of, automate everything in and out on, your domain.
Okay, is there any integration required for LLM?
So the integration part, it has been taken care by the UiPath itself in their cloud. So right out of the box, we get, integration with OpenAI, Anthropic, and I think there was one more. Uh, as a user, you can actually choose, what is the integration, on which vendor you want to, go ahead with. And basically that will be defined in your governance layer, and all the requests, it will be kind of managed again with the security and trust from the UiPath trust layer.
Okay. And then the next questions are, how will the agentic impact the current development lifecycle from developers' perspective? Any changes in Studio or Orchestrator? And what and how would license work for agentic?
Okay, so I'll be taking up, the development part of, how the agents, of how we will be developing the agents. So, traditionally and so far, you have been building automations. So what I see is going forward, automation will be more like a functional step that you'll be having within your processes, right? So far you have been thinking about automation as end to end. If you are building automation, you'll be, creating everything within one workflow where it will, take information from one system and update it into the other. So far, I mean, so far you are dividing your automation more into a dispatcher performer model, but I think going forward it will be more than that, where you'll be creating more granular or more modular automations, right? So, you'll be creating maybe like one automation that takes the input from a particular source, right? Another automation will be validating that information, and another will be just taking that information out to, and putting it into a different application. So start thinking all this about automation more like a function rather than a sequential step, right? And that is something which we'll be getting ahead and developing in studio. But overall, these agents and how we actually build them, it has been managed and developed by agents, and that is within automation cloud. It is a browser based setup, low code setup, where I using this framework that we have on the screen. You will be able to build agents on top of it. And again, there will be no changes. I mean, not major changes that will come with the studio or orchestrator. The main part where we'll be developing these agents will be in a separate platform, but all the other tools will be kind of using as it will be used as like an integration to bring everything together. And the licensing, so Agentic is very much new. And right now, as we speak, I think the product is in public preview. So I think we will get there for the licensing. It will be too soon to say anything on the licensing and what we can expect.
Yeah, and then Vina Levana also put into the chat that we're going to have a AI Agentic Day on March 25th. So if people are
Mhm.
interested in signing up for that, it's a great way to be able to ask questions there as well. Just highly recommend
Oh,
that. So then
yeah.
the next question for you is, when using Agentic AI or UiPath, do we need to create custom models, or can we utilize predefined models?
So when it comes to agentic, uh, at least with the tool, uh, I'm not saying you don't have any capability where you can bring your custom model. The direct exposure we have with the model is with the LLM providers. We don't have an out-of-box capability where you can put in your model and it can be uh, you know plugged and played and used right away. But I think over the period of time we can see something. I don't know, maybe we can expect something on that space as well.
Okay, thank you. And then, are there any integrations with process and task mining? How can Agentic be useful to discover use cases with UiPath?
That's a very interesting question. So currently, the way I see it is the different tools that we have, maybe around the mining and how we identify opportunities. It is going to be separate, and maybe like at one point we'll be able to introduce agency as part of that as well, where there is a layer where actually it optimizes and finds out what will be the best for it, and it will be transformed to an agentic layer where it will be able to integrate and it will be able to act upon it. But right now there is no direct integration, but we do have something called autopilot. So the autopilot, we have certain features that has been built around in this mining tool that can help in implementing the mining the this process mining technologies.
Okay. And then, what are the limitations for the processes used as tools in agents?
So one of the things that I feel is uh, since we're exposing all this data directly to the agentic AI, everything has actually been governed with the integration layer. Now, if there is any kind of change within your, your API platform, right? or with your custom, API platform, I think you have to define that rules within that integration layer. So if there is any change or if there is any update to that integration layer, maybe that can cause, uh, you know, the data, or it can kind of cause, certain things within, within your processing, right? Uh, Apart from that, like right now, I don't think, I can think about any other limitation that, you can have by directly exposing your tools within, within the agents.
Thanks. And then our AI agents, do they minimize the need of UiPath support engineers?
Yeah, I think definitely using agents for UiPath support will be a very interesting use case. And I think self-healing, UiPath introduced the self-healing capability where, you know, in system will be able to identify what, selector broke, and it will be able to give up a fix for it, right? So that is just one of that example where, the AI system is kind of helping in the way of support. But I see more than that, right now with the support, we have a L1 team who's kind of monitoring the orchestrator, is monitoring the bot runs, and then if there is any failures, it has been delegated to L2. I think over the period of time, we can have an AI agent that can have exposures that can directly integrate with the orchestrator and with the bot, and it will be able to understand, where it is failing. It will be able to first get the alert, and it will also able to understand where it is failing. And over the period of time, by giving it the proper instructions, and how it actually need to kind of get healed, I think the support agent will be itself will be able to take care of the scenario. But it will be one of the interesting use case that we can look up for.
Great answer. The next question is, they're putting you to the test today, Vina Levon. Can Agentic be hosted on client also, or will that be available on cloud? So I
So
think that's a
currently,
on-premise, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
so currently the agent, it has been completely in cloud. UiPath has been, completely a cloud first. Uh, I mean, the entire feature that we see, it is first cloud first. And I think the cloud is basically trusted by, the majority of the, uh, the Fortune 500 companies. And the agent will be also part of the cloud offering.
Okay. And then can you help me understand how Agentic can assist in handling automation across multiple client websites? Specifically, if I'm working with 50 different client websites, each having a unique UI and different selectors, how can Agentic streamline data population efficiently across them?
Okay, very interesting question. So there have been, a different model or different thing that is coming along with, the lines of the major AI providers, through which the agents are able to understand the screen, and it is also able to do certain UI automation on top of it, right? But that is a more riskier approach. You're right. You're exposing your tools and your environment directly to a third party, LLM, which it can read the data, or maybe like it can use it for its, retraining over the time. And again, all those things are not governed by an enterprise framework, right? If you're going with a third party LLM and all the latest thing that is coming along, what it becomes important is when it comes to an enterprise workflow, you need to see UI automation as something that is more restricted, right? It is able, you're having a certain technology that can not work or do something that can cause a lot many chaos, right? So I think the UI automation base, it will be very much reliable, or it will be much more efficient if it is done by an system that are not that we're doing so far with the RPA, right? So even in the case where there are multiple, when at least for now, the way I see it is, you'll be building automations for doing the UI automation piece. But over that time, I think the studio will get better, where it will be able to just do the automation, where it'll be just able to build the script much more faster than you're able to do it now.
Okay. All right. And then, let's see. What about the token usage and LLM call tracking? Is there any report providing on how the agent is utilizing the tokens? Also, how the agentic AI health is taken into consideration on what elements?
And again, that's a great question. Monitoring the usage, it is, I think it's one of the key component of how you track the behavior and how you kind of keep a track of how the overall health and the cost has been going along. So right now, we can see the details about what is the usage of, your AI system, mainly around the autopilot, how the calls are consumed in the AI trust layer. You get an interface where you can see a kind of breakdown of, how the usage is looking like across the organization. So yeah,
Okay,
we do have it using the trust layer.
okay. And then just one last question. Is there anything on the roadmap for on-prem?
I don't think so. We have anything on the on-prem, but that is something, you can uh, look into that documentation or at least sign up to that, the preview, or you can look up into the forum where you can find certain details around it. But as of now, this system is completely on cloud.
Right. And that's the end of those questions in the chat.
Okay, interesting. So that brings, I mean, almost to our end of our presentation. I just had one example, but I think we kind of went over this in our session. So resources for you to get started, it's basically you can sign up for autopilot for everyone, and like it's one of the like mediator step where you can before going to completely agentic, where you can use this platform for your day to day. Maybe like you're a developer and if you want to build up an automation very fast, very quickly, then autopilot for developers is for you. You have autopilot for testers, you have autopilot for for like for a BA or for the analyst work as well. So you can sign up for autopilot for everyone. You can give it a try using that link. I'll just put this link in the chat. Then Diana's already put down the codes for uh, agentic AI and how you can actually get started. And this is kind of a very interesting course where it actually touches upon a lot of fundamentals, and I think this is a very good prerequisite where you can, this is a prerequisite where you can get ahead and learn about, all that, the fundamentals before getting started with agentic AI. And the other thing that, which you can do is you can follow us on community. So the link is basically for the New York community. So if you kind of join this group, you'll be getting notified for any kind of future events that we'll be doing in this space. And finally, you can sign up for Agentic Agent Builder. And I'll be putting the link in the chat where you can just sign up and you'll be given access to this platform. And the better way to learn any tool is basically to uh, you know going through the platform itself. So you can sign up for the link as well.
Great. Thank you, Veena Levine. I think Parvati has one last question for you.
Sure.
Hey, hi. I just want to know how an agent memory works here. Like now we are providing like the agent perform the end-to-end automations, right? So how it's going to remember the last issue and how can it overcome with that? Because we are not involving humans with each and every issue, right? So very important ones we are doing human in the loop. So can you tell me how that agent can utilize the agent memory?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. So the agent has, different type of memory. One is the short memory and one is the long-term memory. The short-term memory is basically used anything within the context, within the current session of the agent execution, right? But in this case, where it will be, whatever thing that has been learning and adapting from a human input, it will be storing in a long-term memory, right? So over the period of time, if it encounters the same scenario again, it knows, okay, from its memory, like what the or what is the step that it has to perform.
Okay, so for this AI units are considered like does it consume any AI units like for the short term separately or the long term separate?
So the details on how the licensing will be used across, this entire thing, it is not yet confirmed. So it will be not very soon to comment anything on it.
Okay, so one more thing. So about the score, I mean the health of the agent. Okay, what are the important elements like we have to consider? Now, let's say for communication mining, they give the overall insight of where the data, how much data should be ingested, right? In the same way, like, do we get anything like insight for the overall agent AI health?
So yeah, definitely, I think that is something which will be in the roadmap for the product. But overall, if you see like how we can build a better agent, it starts from understanding your business process and your putting out a smart enough or very much good enough prompts, right? Because at the end, it's basically you need to feed that your agent instructions on how it has to react on certain things. So I feel that will be a differential factor, of having build a smart enough agent that can work on a business process.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions today, everybody. Thank you. And Veena Levan, great job. Thank you very much.
So it was actually great. I mean, there were a lot of interesting questions, and it was great to see people engaged throughout the session with their questions.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is like the foundational part of this entire series. I think there is very much more to come, throughout this entire series. So definitely, I will encourage people to sign up.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks, Veena.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Uh-huh.